Happy Thursday. Welcome back to the Wolff Den presented by Win Again Academy. Check out Mark Moyer's networking events at winagainacademy.com. I'm Matt Wolff, founder and CEO of Ticket Time Machine. Today we have Paul Moline. You see here Mo in the Wolff Den, on the Wolff Den. Welcome. Great to have you here.
Well, Matt, I sure appreciate you taking the time and the invite. It's an honor.
Yeah, well, we're looking forward to talking about cancer and what we can do to help. I'm sporting my Rams hat. We got NFL opening tonight, right? The first game. This hat also represents my sports weekend trip that I take with my buddies every year. Last year we were in LA, got to see SoFi Stadium, nicest stadium I've ever been into, and I'm leaving tomorrow for Cincinnati on the 21st year of our sports weekend. Should be a great weekend, so that's why I'm sporting the Rams hat. But great to have you here. For the people in the audience who don't know who you are, give us a quick intro, and then we'll get into it.
Sure, absolutely, Matt. I'm just a kid from small town central Minnesota that over the years blessed to have had family that was involved in a lot of charitable endeavors, specifically my parents. And back in the mid-90s when Mom was first diagnosed and she had battled cancer multiple times, I kept racking my brain, what can you do? What can you do? And fast forward, as I relocated into Texas, good buddy of mine, Jim Round, the two of us started an event called the MJ Events, which Mo and Jim, of course, over 20 years, we were able to raise $8 million, targeted more towards pediatric cancer, but cancer in general through multiple parties, but tremendous support along the way. And now I'm out in Arizona, and as you and I were talking prior to the show, we're looking forward to a week and a half out from the Lombardi Southwest Open, our inaugural event, expanding out here into the Scottsdale, Arizona community.
And so you're president of the Vince Lombardi Cancer Foundation.
Yes, I'm honored and humbled I took over January 1 as president of the foundation for a 2-year term. I've served on the board now. This is coming into my 4th year. And through a mutual friend, a prior president, and I had conversations around, how do we expand outside of Milwaukee with the Lombardi event down into Texas. And now at the end of the day, I'm tasked with continuing to find a cure for cancer with a tremendous team and a lot of resources available for us.
So Vince Lombardi, obviously the Hall of Fame coach of the Packers, that's where the Milwaukee comes in. Does it matter? I mean, he's such a well-known figure and cancer is such a big, does it matter where any of this stuff happens as you look to expand? What are you seeing?
Man, that's a great question, Matt. So when we first started having discussions around it, it's been a blessing over the 50 years, unfortunately, since Coach passed, when the Lombardi Golf Classic, which was a golf event in Milwaukee that started this all, the idea and the thought, and this is something I've always believed in, is, cancer touches so many people in every walk of life on a global scale. So the broader the reach, quite frankly, broader the support that you're able to find. So, when you look at the individual's name that's on the trophy that's handed out each year for the Super Bowl, I've just thought, how do we best utilize that to continue to attack, to get the word out, and try to reach as many people as possible. So the expansion efforts, we're not going to limit it just to Wisconsin and Arizona. Ideally, go as wide and as far as we're able to take it.
Yeah. Everyone knows someone who's touched with cancer. My father passed from pancreatic. We had someone from the Pancreas Foundation on. My mom has MDS. We do stuff with LLS, leukemia and lymphoma. But it's a difficult. I ask this every time we have someone on. How do you get the attention and the donations and the visibility? Because there's just so many there's just so many options that people have, and some of it is, hey, I know someone who suffered from this specifically, but it's difficult. It's difficult to get that. There's just so many good causes around. How do you try and get visibility with that?
Boy, another great question, Matt. And I'll tell you, first you share the story, and there's a number of them that I can go into some details on. But in less than a 3 month span between the end of 2010 and 2011, I lost my mom and then my brother, who was 50 at the time, both of them to cancer in less than 3 months. Shortly behind that, lost my father. Shortly behind that, or excuse me, prior to that, I was diagnosed with cancer. So 8 days after that, my buddy Jim Round had been diagnosed with cancer. So I think when you first present the story and you either look at it, positively or negatively, and realize that there are so many 501c3s out there, um, but at the end of the day, we're only getting so much momentum. There's certainly progress being made. In particular, the pediatric cancer environment for many years was very underfunded and there wasn't much known about it. So a lot of it's getting the word out. Tomorrow, I'm actually doing a tour at Phoenix Children's Hospital, and they're involved as a partner with the Lombardi Foundation for the Lombardi Southwest Open. We're looking at getting them involved with our grant process, which entities apply for grants, and then we work with doctors around the country to vet out what are the grants that best fit the direction of prevent, care, and cure cancer. So it's a challenge, but it's certainly not the challenge of battling cancer. So
Yeah. So, tell us a little bit about the Lombardi Foundation. We talked about its help to prevent, help to people who are living with it, and to cure. What is there something they focus on? Where does money go to? This is all stuff people want to know as they're trying to figure out where do I want to throw my support, money and time, obviously.
yeah, that's one of the really positives, and I think this is certainly people well prior to my time, Matt, were able to define a path that clearly had a component of it built into want to focus on pediatric cancer. And Bart Starr, who obviously was quarterback when Coach Lombardi was with the Packers, he and his wife Cherry had started the Star Fund, which is it's focused for pediatric cancer. That's part of what's under the Lombardi arm. So that specific area, when we look and when funds are moved towards the Star Fund, it's again going back to that prevent, care, and cure in the space for pediatric cancer. So the overall Lombardi umbrella tries to reach as many areas of cancer as we can. And the medical advisory committee that I actually chair is based on, so for example, this year we had 28 entities, research institutions, could be a number of hospitals, service providers. When they apply for a grant, I work with this team of doctors to help vet out what are the grants that, and I mentioned this earlier, keep us down that path of prevent, care, and cure, and really align well with the mission of what the Lombardi Foundation was founded for. So once we get through that process, and we're literally wrapping up this year's process, we'll end up giving out a percentage to whatever the number of recipients that this team of medical doctors who are way smarter than I help us figure out, hey, these are areas that fit well with what the foundation's ultimately trying to accomplish. So over the years, that could be related towards breast cancer, certainly the elements around pediatric cancer, brain cancer. We try not to limit it. We want to make sure that when we open up our grant process, that there's obviously a need out there that's so wide ranging, Matt, that I just want to make sure that that's part of why we're blessed to have this team of doctors that help us vet out. Hey, these are ones that obviously you'd love to help everyone, but coming off of the COVID years, that was tight on all 501c3s. So I have yet to have any entity, though, when we offer them a grant as a recipient, tell me no. So everybody likes a little cash.
Let me know when that happens.
Yeah.
The as I look at charity, where do I want to put my money to? What do I give? I think a lot of times we look at how is this going to help? right? And my feeling, I don't know, I'm surprised that we haven't cured cancer. That's, it seems with all this stuff that we've been able to do in this world in this lifetime, it seems weird that that's something that we haven't been able to do. And frankly, I'm not that optimistic it'll get done in in my lifetime. And that's not me trying to be pessimistic. It's just trying to be like, look, it's we've seen what we've done. We've thrown a lot of money at something. So thinking about like focusing, how do we improve the quality of life for the people who have it and then prevent it? Is there like a breakdown on how much is prevent, care, and cure?
I don't know that we've got percentages per se under those three categories, Matt, but if you think so, take blood cancers in children. Years ago, that was basically a death sentence. And flip in today's terms, the cure rate, and I don't have the exact percentages, I don't want to speak out of context, but it's amazing how much progress has been made, how many lives have been saved. Again, I went through prostate cancer and I lost an uncle. My father had it. Um, Back in the day, prostate cancer could be a kiss of death as well. So there's advancements and it's frustrating. So I'm not hearing pessimism. I think it's probably more realism coming from you
Yeah,
in some respects, but it that's the driving force of why I spent 25 years of my life trying to find a cure. It has to be out there.
I would
When you
think
think
it
of what
does.
we've
I
done.
agree. You think it has to be out there. It's just gets
Yeah.
that feeling like it's not the money thrown at it. It's going to be maybe some sort of luck, but I guess money does have it because the money allows people to experiment and to test and do sort of a lot of that thing. Um, Obviously, prevent and enhancing the quality of lives of people. Whether that's, hey, we can keep you alive for a lot longer. And I know people who've outlived their diagnosis, or it could be as you're around, have things not as bad. Do you have an idea? And again, don't want to talk out of turn. How much, like, for every dollar goes to um, helping the actual patients, and how much goes to
Yeah,
research?
you want to stay. There are certain standards out there within yeah, there, the actual breakdown, if you look at 501(c)(3)s, everybody's held to a standard in order to maintain that status. So think of it in the terms of, just for simplicity's sake, Matt, an 80/20 principle. So one of the cool things for the Lombardi Foundation, my role is not paid. I cover all my own expenses when I travel back to Wisconsin for board meetings, for check presentations, whatever it might be. So if you look at 80, 85, or 90% of your dollar that goes towards directly impacting non-administrative costs. And that's important because there are a lot of charities out there that, if you give them a buck, they're going to put 4 cents of that dollar. And I'm not here to bash anybody else. It's more, I'm proud of what the Lombardi Cancer Foundation does is we return a high percentage on that dollar, um, as we look to, and that goes through that grant process. So if you think of, um, last year, we supported a mobile mammography van that was a brand new van down in the Houston, Texas community. That's able to get out and reach people in communities where they're not able to get to a hospital to go get checked. How many lives get touched, potentially saved because of early detection within that. Um, Being able to fund those items, that you have to have, in some respects, Matt, you're running it like a business, and it's got to be a very expense conscious business. So that's part of why I don't believe in the 501(c)(3) space, at least within the Lombardi Cancer Foundation, that we positions for board members should be paid. That's my personal uh, belief. And again, that goes back to just the larger percentage of the dollar then is able to go where it should go, whether it's to research, whether it's to prevention, whether it's to care, those elements. So hope that provides some clarity.
Yeah, well, it's interesting because the not for profit is it's misused and misquoted so often. That doesn't mean you don't make profit. Just means whatever profit you make is put back into it. But there's a lot of ways that you can use that money to put back into it that could be beneficial to the people who are there. So that's why everyone's looking for a 501c3 type designation, right? And it's interesting. A lot of the charities out there, you want to know, what are they doing? Are they doing good? And I'm more of a person that doesn't just give money to someone who gives them, contributes to something that I know where it's going to go and what it's going to be doing. And I think there's a lot of people out there, and some people don't care. Some people, they have a cause that they want to believe in, and they back it, which is great. We all need a lot more of that. There's not enough resources to help everyone, and there's a lot of other stuff aside from cancer. Friends of mine who've touched by Alzheimer's and ALS, and man, there's just so much, uh, you know, so much out there. Um, it's tough. How would you be if you didn't have a cancer? I mean, I think you have a charitable, mindset. If cancer wasn't the big factor in your life, do you think you would have gone elsewhere? Is there another cause that has touched you as well? Because I have a couple. My father had Parkinson's before he got cancer, and so we sort of started to back Parkinson's, and then he got the cancer, and now my mom. So you kind of move on from Parkinson's, which obviously is bad. There's no really ranking diseases, although Norm Macdonald has a great bit about the best diseases out there, joking about alcoholism, which isn't much of a joke, but it's still, there's some fun, you can laugh at it in the context.
Yeah, well, I guess to answer your question, Matt, so if it wasn't focused on cancer, it would be something else. And I am involved. I help support a tremendous amount of whether it's Crohn's and colitis, muscular dystrophy, Alzheimer's. Because of my involvement over the years and all the support we've received, there's got to be some level of reciprocating and continuing to support other areas. So if if the day comes when we find a cure for cancer, I'll be on to something else. I think that's part was embedded in me early on because of, as I mentioned earlier, Matt, both my parents were incredibly involved in charities, whether it was American Cancer Society or, stuff like the Boy Scouts. It's not necessarily always something that's got to have a medical condition, component to it. So I would see that at the end of the day, uh, that's a personal goal, of course, in my lifetime, and I hope I got plenty of years left on the planet. I'd love for us to see a cure. My oldest sister was born blind. How cool would it be if before she dies, she'd be able to see?
Yeah.
So yeah, there's so many areas, and I think it was a really good point you touched on, Matt. Is people have so many choices being thrown at them, and then they see the media talk about certain organizations that might not manage the financials with a true fiscal responsibility mindset. And that's the last thing. We wouldn't be a 50-year foundation or 50 plus years now if things weren't managed properly along the way. And that goes back to the respect for Coach Lombardi and all the individuals involved way before my time. Last thing you want to be is the president that does something that doesn't help the foundation continue to grow.
Yeah. It's political, not in like a Democrat Republican, but there's a lot of politics involved with charity and getting stuff. And then you could have someone who, a big name to get the visibility of it. And so it's like sometimes there's no rhyme or reason why you get the eyes or the money on it. People write large checks because it's a write off and it could be good for their taxes, which is great, right? Keep sending it, but you want to find the people who really are passionate about uh, helping others, other than just sending money, because there's a lot of that needed. And it's tough. It's not easy to find. I find that as I'm having conversations and meeting new people and just trying to ask for help in certain things and the stuff that I hear, it's not as easy as you would think to find those people who are just genuinely want to help. And I can tell you, me personally, I like to help, but I can't go to a hospital and be around. I was around my father, my grandma. It's something in me, just can't be around people. I see them on the street anywhere. It's very hard for me to be around those people. I wish I could. I think someday if I have a bigger platform, I'll make a point to do it. But it's not an easy thing to be around sick people and not, and to want to help.
It's an emotional component, Matt, and I wear it on the sleeve.
Yeah.
I watched what my brother went through. He had just got his black belt in karate, three young kids. I mean, nothing but life to live for. Was an executive up at U.S. Bank and comes down with kidney cancer. And from diagnosis to when he passed, a little over a year. It was. I've been around this stuff now for, as I mentioned, Matt, 20 some years. Well, it always hurts. And it is a tough element when you go into a hospital and you do a check presentation or you go to visit kids that are battling cancer. That's one of the things that sucks the most is when I see kids. It's bad for anyone. But if I would have gone at 50 years old, for me personally, I'd already had 50 years of life. When I see kids going through it, you're not that unlike a lot of people who really struggle to be around that and see it. So it isn't anything other than if I brought you along to a check presentation in the right setting, sometimes those are the triggers. I know that's one of the things that provides fuel in my gas tank is when why do you put up with the long hours? Why do you deal with, it's a challenge, competitive landscape to go raise dollars. And it's never losing focus on what's the ultimate goal. And I got to keep it simple because I'm not the brightest bulb on the tree, but if we're making an impact, and you said it when we kicked the show off or just prior, if you help one person, man, that's a pretty gratifying feeling. But as soon as you help one, you want to help another, and we're really blessed to have Coach Lombardi's name, which is such a recognizable entity, not just from a Wisconsin centric environment or an NFL centric environment. I don't come across too many people who don't know who he was. They might not know his whole story or that he passed from cancer, but as you get to talking to him, and we've had presidents, we've had Jack Nicklaus, we've had, as I mentioned, Aaron Andrews. So many celebrities have been involved over the 50 plus years of this event, and that only helps you get the reach out that much more. So, but it doesn't come without its challenges, and I'm not sugarcoating it. It sucks going to a hospital sometimes, but I also have to look past that and see, okay, what's the end goal? If you put a
Yes.
smile on a kid's face, man, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, and in a lot of ways, the kid doesn't care if you're Aaron Andrews or Tom Brady or Paul Moline. They
Yep.
don't. People do, right? They ask, they want, you get, but it's you have a chance to really brighten someone's day. I don't know why people don't do more of it. I can't speak for other people for money, but there's also time. And I've been involved in some charity events where I hear, this person won't perform or show up unless there's X amount of money for them. Um, People are so fortunate to have money and time and health. And like, could you give a day of your life to, and there's so many of them, right? I'm sure they get hit up by a lot. And so maybe just pick a few, but I think people could be doing more. I think we all could do more, frankly. I try and do more every day, but you got to want to do it, right? You don't want someone going to these things that are forced and not, happy and not contributing to the event.
I think it's a solid point, Matt. If somebody doesn't have money, they have time, and we've been blessed to have really incredible volunteer teams over the years for all of our events. And the Lombardi Cancer Foundation. There's a series of signature events that we do throughout the year, and none of those take place without the horsepower of the volunteers. And to me, yeah, I mean, the engine runs on the financial support, but the engine doesn't move without the volunteer support. And so everybody has time to be able to commit to it in one way, shape, or form, And so it's trying to, I think, you got to adjust the business model to help reach as many people as possible, if that makes sense.
But it also is a business, the same as sports is a business. It's financially dependent. So let's talk about how do you guys generate money? Um,
Yep.
Donations, obviously, is that the biggest part? Just random donations?
I would say that in particular with the Vince Lombardi Cancer Foundation, when we look at the events, So Award of Excellence, which I mentioned to you, that's what Aaron Andrews received this year. That's basically when we host a gala event. Our food and wine in November coming up is a real large scale event where you get it through sponsorship, you get it through the golf events where people sponsor the teams. We do everything from at the particular dinner ball events, paddle raises. So the revenue that's generated through either sponsors and then individuals that buy tables at any of these events or buy foursomes at either of our golf events, all that revenue at the end of the day, when we pool that together, there are some areas, and I'll use the Lombardi Southwest Open as a great example. I've been blessed to use a lot of contacts that I have who donate a tremendous amount of the items. And thanks, Captain Obvious. That's kind of how you keep expenses down, you know? So over the years, that's one of the areas I challenge our teams. We all can go out and spend money for baseball hats, dude. I'm wearing a Lombardi 50th hat. Well, New Era was kind enough to donate a couple hundred hats to the Lombardi Southwest Open. I just had to find somebody to put an embroidery on them on short notice. And guess what? We did. So it's things like that that, you know, if you take that on an aggregate level and you really look at that with a grand scale of 4, 5, 6 signature events, the more money you're saving, the more money's going to the bottom line. So all that money comes into the Lombardi pool. And then through our grant process, our goal is to give out, you know, we're not looking to have a ton of cash on hand at the end of the process. So we want to give out, give or take, in that 90% range. Got to keep some cash reserve just for expenses that keep events moving along, deposits, those type of things. But we're fortunate to have a great marketing partner in Capture Marketing, strong accounting firm, strong audit team, people that are our checks and balances to keep us on track.
So COVID was a big deal, especially for a lot of charities when they couldn't have events. But I guess my question was, are the events the majority of the donations that you get in on an annual basis, or are people just sort of donating throughout the year?
I think I know the bulk of the money, Matt, comes from the events, but the non-event revenue is a critical component to any 501c3. So whether that's through fellowships at hospitals, like we're working on one now, that could be significant in the 7-figure range. Those are strong areas. When you look at campaigns, like you were looking at the Helmets for Heroes. So that process where each of the 32 starting quarterbacks for the NFL this year, thanks because of the letter that Cherry Star personally sent to each of them, Bart used to do this as part of the Star Fund. We raised, you know, a significant amount of money auctioning off those helmets. So there's campaigns that happen throughout the year. A lot of that can be either virtual. You know, COVID threw a huge monkey wrench into everybody's business, you know, so it did force us to get creative and look at hosting virtual events. I wouldn't kid you, Matt. I mean, it was a challenge to raise money in that environment because if you got everybody going to the Lombardi Golf Classic, you know, they pay for their foursomes, they're going to buy auction items, or there's a number of revenue streams that come from those opportunities that you just can't do on a virtual level.
Yeah, I think on the other hand, virtual allowed you to get to a wider range of people too. So, but there's nothing like being in person for these events. You know, having a conversation that might lead to another conversation that, you know, where someone might open up the checkbook or get that feeling when they're there and they're around. How many are these the type of events where you do bring a bunch of the people dealing with cancer to them, or are they not at these events?
You know, and that's one of the cool things, Matt. Years ago, a buddy of mine that I worked with, he had come up with the idea, hey, prior to the golf event kicking off, we should have a kid that's a cancer survivor come and speak, their family. Well, that grew into, from a great idea somebody else had, a good buddy of mine, his daughter was born with Down syndrome, and then shortly thereafter, she came down with leukemia. Talk about a double whammy. And little Lizzie Hawk in Texas went through a lengthy, you know, multi-year battle. Fortunately, came out on the positive side of that. When we would have their family come up, and Jason Hawk, who's a dear friend of mine, her father, and he's not a public speaker. He wouldn't, you'd struggle to get him to do this. Okay. But when he would get on stage and talk about their family struggle, dude, not a dry eye in the house.
Yeah.
And I'm sitting there holding little Lizzie, who is just the cutest young gal, and thankful that, you know, she's still alive today, considering the battle. Adding that component, the challenge you have, if it's somebody who's battling cancer with, a challenged immune system, um, I've found it's probably safer, for lack of a better way to say it, having somebody who survived a battle than trying to get somebody to come out and, stand out in the heat of Arizona who's going through chemotherapy, for example, right?
No, that makes sense. Sports is such a it's tied to the people who are suffering. Where everyone has a sports hero, or there's so many athletes and people who are looked up to that give their time and energy and form these bonds with patients. Some who don't make it, obviously, and that's a difficult thing. What is it about the sports industry as opposed to maybe movies and music? And I know I'm sure they do theirs. It doesn't seem as visible.
Well, look at the V Foundation. When you think of what Valvano was able to start, in the millions and millions of dollars that have been raised, and awareness. Sports is such a great vehicle, and it is. There's nothing wrong with being greedy for the right reasons, and greedy in my world, when I think of the fact that we've got Vince Lombardi who's looking down on us, and what he's been able to, because of his name, involved with all these events over the years. Not just sports celebrities have come into play, but many others as well. Um, there is just a huge reach when you think of today's world of how easily we can access information. And I'm a sports junkie, so for me, it's kind of a natural tie to try to figure out, hey, we've got the Super Bowl here in Glendale, Arizona this year. How do we utilize that platform, knowing that the Lombardi Trophy is being handed out? How do you utilize that to get more of the awareness out there and raise more dollars? Those are really the two key components.
Do you have something planned for the Super Bowl?
We're working on it, my man.
Well,
I'm not at liberty to share at this
I'll be
point.
out
So,
there, so I hope to be able to stop by.
yeah.
Jimmy V, the ESPYS, his speech, not even close in my mind, the greatest speech I've ever heard
Oh, yeah.
anyone say, and I don't know that anyone's ever going to be able to come closer. Um, it, it's incredible. Just I watch it just every once in a while just to sort of get motivated. And I ask this about other people, like, why do we wait for something bad to happen to sort of start living our life and doing what we need to do? Um, it's unfortunate. It's like what's in the moment, and we're all on top of it, and then that moment passes, and we forget about everything.
When's the last time you saw on network television somebody giving a speech and they try to cut them off, and
Yeah,
they don't? So Jimmy V, that was to your point. That's about as strong and emotional of a speech, and that really, when you think back, was an impetus to the amount of awareness that's out there, in so many people's lives. And but for you hear the stat tossed out there, if 1 in 3 people are directly or indirectly impacted by cancer, I seem to come across a different percentage than that. It's almost everybody in
yeah,
some way are impacted by it. So I'm like you. I get frustrated at times. Why the heck don't we have a cure yet? Well,
yeah. It's not the number one cause of death because I think heart disease is the number one cause, but it's right there. And then it's
yeah.
like three times as much as the net. Those are three times as much as anything else. Other types of causes of death, which is, I mean, that's dire. That's death. There's not like I don't even know what else. It's not like, hey, I don't even know. People like your family member who's blind. I mean, it's not death. It's not a great way to live. It's a tough way to go through life, but you're alive. Now, some people, this is a whole nother conversation. Do people want to live if they have this, and this? I have my own thoughts about that, but um, it's crazy how dire it is, but it almost doesn't seem dire. I don't know. Is that weird to say? It doesn't seem dire for cancer, but it almost seems like it's not treated that way in some sense.
I think people get numb to it unless it really becomes personal. I can tell you firsthand, when I walked into the urologist and he said, "You have cancer," immediately you think you're going to die. Now, I caught mine early, Matt. Okay. I was one of the lucky ones. And fortunate to go through the process, have the surgery, get rid of the prostate, get rid of the cancer. But you do become numb to so much of the information until it hits you personally. In many cases, I can't speak for everyone, but there's just so much out there, and the frustration that you share is common. People people tend to think, why haven't we found the cure? And we're not doing as good of a job organizationally. And I would challenge all the organizations related to any disease in communicating the positives that are happening, because there's a tremendous amount. And
Oh yeah,
selfishly, I see that, and I'm going to see it tomorrow when I'm at Phoenix Children's. It's going to be tough to walk down the halls in some areas, but I'm excited to hear the progress some of the top doctors in the world are making within the cancer space.
yeah. I had I can't even imagine. I'll tell you a story. I don't even remember. It was a long time ago. I went to the dentist and he said, "There's something wrong with your tooth. We got to remove your tooth, your front tooth. We got to remove your front tooth." And I was an adult. It was probably 10, 15 years ago. Maybe I cried the whole way home. I was missing a tooth. I was just going to miss a tooth temporarily. And I was devastated.
Yeah.
I think we're so privileged about how we get to live that we don't even look at the people who are disadvantaged and the type of stuff that they have to go through again, unless it hits you personally. Even for my dad, when I found out he had cancer, I knew he would be gone. He was gone in 6 weeks. When you have someone who's got to live with it long and go through all this stuff. My mom sort of has it now. I don't get to see it so much, but she goes through transfusions and not feeling well, and her whole life is impacted. But she's still, it's not. It always could be worse. And she's probably, with again, we don't like to compare cancers all, but what she's having to live with compared to the stories that you hear is it's nothing. But we just don't. We don't. I don't know. It's the thing with life too. It doesn't have to be about illness. It's just I always have to wait for something to happen. I try and do. When my dad passed, and you probably might have had this when your parents. It's just life is short. Life can be short. Let's do what makes us happy. Let's try and help other people, make the world a better place. Whatever we can do, because we're so lucky. But there's not enough people like that. You even hear this with COVID, like people were bashing COVID until they got it. And then they're like, oh, and some of them didn't make it. That's a tough way to go through life.
You've referenced it a couple times, Matt, and it certainly resonates with me. People tend to wait until it hits the fan or some kind of a wake up call, whether it's to get involved or to make adjustments and how they're going to live their life. And, it's not for me to judge. That's not, that's not my role. But what it is for me to do is act. And I think if everybody steps back and, goes to our conversation earlier, whether it's money, whether it's time, involvement, whatever, there's so many needs out there. And you talk about short staffing in the world today. Well, the 501c3 world's been dealing with short staffing as far as I can recall, at least over the 25 years I've been involved. And, people taking action, a lot of excuses out there. And I tend to pull a lot of those excuses away from some people when they want to tell me something can't be done. Okay.
Yeah.
Let's go work down that path, huh?
Yeah. You say, watch me. The I was going to talk. We talk about cancer and caring for and cure. The prevent is the biggest, one of the biggest components. I champion for an organization called Same Here with mental health, and a lot of it's preventing preventing, because we all have something we're dealing with. What should people do? I know I'm not as good, annual physical as you get older, get all the tests done. What are the resources that people can have to help prevent and make sure that they do try and keep themselves. I mean, it's the luck of the draw in some ways, but some of it is preventative health and making sure you catch something early, which, could be the difference between life and death.
So I'm going to hand you the winning lottery ticket, Matt. This is a really cool day for you and anybody that's listening. They're called doctors.
Yeah.
Okay. And I don't mean that in jest. If I hadn't been on a plan with doctors, not just with my prostate cancer, there's so many diseases that are treatable and or avoidable with early detection. And the stigma that's been out there, man, I haven't scheduled my annual physical, or I don't want to go to the urologist for obvious reasons. It's like the dentist. I don't know anybody that likes going to them, but it's a necessary evil, right? So I do think, kidding
It's
aside,
easy
Matt,
not to go. I can tell you
yep,
myself, and I won't tell you how long, but I went a long time without going to the dentist, and
yep,
the end result was not great. Not as bad as I maybe thought it could have been, but was not great. And so the doctors too, it's like, if I don't go, I'm not going to get any bad news. If I, and that's a terrible way to do. But I also went to the doctor, and I have friends who go to doctors and doctor after doctor, and they can't figure it out. They don't know what's wrong with me. They didn't know what's wrong with her. And now it becomes expensive, right? What does your health insurance look like? I think the U.S., we talk about universal health care. We talk about access to doctors, and how big of a obstacle is that towards what you guys are trying to do and what we're all trying to do.
well, I think it's a great point, Matt. And doctors are practitioners, which means they practice. Doesn't mean they're perfect. So depending on the type of disease or sickness that they're trying to diagnose and get after, I spend a lot of time in that space. And as much as I'm learning, I realize I know that much compared to what the doctors do. And I just have always believed that's your coach. That should be your guidepost. Is establish. So utilize prostate cancer as an example. If you establish a PSA test early on, if you have history in your family or not, the traditional age, whether it's 40, 45, or 50 years old, people, once you establish that PSA number, that helps you to be able to see if it ticks up a little bit, like it did in my case. Then eventually the doctor says, let's do a biopsy. If they do a biopsy, you're either going to have cancer or not. And that's a definitive way to find out. So I do think it's a really good call out on your point to what can people do. Hey, certainly, and I'm a single guy. Nobody yells at me and tells me that I got to go to the doctor. I got to do that myself. But my mom worked at a hospital, so I grew up in that environment, understanding the value of it. And then I've watched it happen, over the years. As unfortunately, we lost some family members along the way, but uh, the value of that early diagnosis is huge.
Yeah.
It doesn't always mean you win, but
No, I think it's, look, I talk about a lot of these things, and I'm as guilty of them as any. Um, and as I get older, I know it's just stuff happens. You gotta try and find out what's going on. It's not just trying to get over a cough or a cold, which I self-diagnose myself and just try and do it. But if something's wrong, definitely go find someone, because delaying anything is never gonna make something better. I don't think
yeah,
wine, right? Wine and that's the only thing that gets better with age. And but nothing else.
good call, good
Procrastinating, and we
point.
do it. Procrastinating on anything is just, if you're going to get the bad news, you're always better to get it sooner than later.
Hey, it's like my golf game. That isn't getting better with age. So,
Yeah, I got a funny someone sent me a funny golf cartoon. I'm going to send it to you. Is that your sport?
okay.
Has it always been your sport?
It wasn't always. I grew up playing hockey, being from Minnesota originally. But then when I lived down in Florida, as you and I had talked, I was down in Coral Springs, worked in Miami for a number of years, lived in Clearwater for a period of time. And that's when I first started golf. And as soon as I did, I fell in love with it. And there's supposed to be some natural transition for hockey players to golf, but I must be that exception. So, but
Just
I have
happy.
fun. Yeah, I use it as a vehicle in many ways. It's really become a part of my life. And I live in Arizona, which is certainly one of the meccas out there. So, um, it's just a great, 4 or 5 hours, grab a beer, be out with your buddies or meeting new people and um,
And golf is the
enjoying it.
go-to charity event. I mean, you have some other stuff, but it is the go-to charity event. Um, how did that become to be? Because there's not a lot, a ton of people get to play golf, but celebrities like to play golf.
I would like to know if you could ever figure out what's the total amount of dollars raised over, let's just say, the last 20 years out of all the golf tournaments handled on a global level. It's got to be staggering.
If you're talking about for charity or
Yeah, for charity,
yeah,
you
yeah,
know.
yeah.
So, and maybe that's part of golf. Golf has become a sport that is continued to be more and more affordable. So it used to obviously be more of a rich person sport, but I think in today's world, trying to make sure that more people get a chance to be able to play it doesn't mean you're going to play, the top courses, but yeah, it's a great vehicle that I've certainly witnessed firsthand over these last 20 plus years. And the fact that we were able to get $8 million raised roughly, um, just with two clowns putting a small golf tournament together and watching that thing grow over the years. And I think our best year was close to $500,000 raised. I mean, it's not like we're the smartest people in the planet. We just committed to something.
Yeah, I think that's what you do. I've talked about doing events and stuff, and just the biggest challenge is just doing it. Once you hit that first roadblock, I talk about this all the time. Once you hit that first roadblock, are you going to push through it, or are you going to make an excuse why? And I've made so many excuses why I shouldn't do this or that. We take a time machine. I just said, you know what? It doesn't matter what comes my way. I'm going to do it. And now I see all these events. I mean, there's events that they're getting 10, 15,000 people at. Like, you've never even heard of this event. It's like crazy. The type of event it is too. There's an event for everyone, and now we just got to find a way to, get some more people involved in the events that are doing good. Like there's value to other events, even if they're not for charities. Um, I think, but yeah, golf is. It seems to be the go-to event. What do you think about this whole live situation?
It's interesting. I've tried to be as neutral as possible. I don't fault if the guys just come out and say, hey, I'm taking a money grab. I'm going to go help my family cement this legacy for a period of time. Um, I good buddy of mine had come up with a great concept. What if they did a Ryder Cup format against top PGA golfers and did it for charity?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, good luck trying to get, because it's such a money grab. I think it's a unique endeavor that Norman was hell bent on pulling it together, and of course has the deepest pockets with the Saudi backing. So I don't believe it's going to be a one and done. I think it'll morph. But the challenge I look at it, Matt, it's a 54-hole event, so they shouldn't get points towards PGA events. That's such a slippery slope when you start thinking of who do you exclude from what's the Masters going to do. That's an invitational.
Yeah.
Do they all of a sudden say, hey, wait a minute, you're not invited? Sorry,
I
Patrick Reed. Sorry, DJ. I don't know.
I think I think you don't, but I don't know. The best players in the world are still in the PGA Tour. The most compelling golf is going to be in that.
Yep.
I didn't even know this, but I heard they're getting a draw. Like the money is even just a draw, so
Yep.
it's
It's
like the
basically
money.
a draw for their contract.
Right. So it's you think about, look, when I first started, I actually had a draw for a job. It was the worst job I ever had. And you need to get out of the draw to make money. These people's draw is so big, you don't have to get out of the draw. You don't ever have to win. And you've
Yep.
already won. That's a challenge for me. Another controversial topic, Caddyshack 2. I think it's pretty funny. I think if it was on its own, it would be a great movie. A lot of people are the purists. They are Caddyshack and they don't even acknowledge it. Do you have any thoughts on that? Are you?
I would say I'm certainly a traditionalist in the sense it's kind of hard to beat Caddyshack 1,
Yeah.
but um, it's like other movies when you see a sequel. What's better, what's not. I'm always open to at least, hey, I'll check it out, but it's going to be pretty hard to beat Caddyshack 1. I think just when you look at and hear all the stories of how that movie came together, She just, what an incredible behind the scenes environment that had to be.
Yeah.
Oh, I could just imagine, but so to answer your question, I would stay with one.
Yeah, I don't know. I love two. I think it was funny. It's it's not as good, but it was close, a lot closer than some of these other sequels. Tin Cup, another golf movie I really love. What a great movie that was. And then you like pains you every time you watch him on that hole where it's who was the guy? Sean Vandeville. Who was the guy who
Oh,
pulled the Tin Cup in like one of the majors? It was something Vandeville. I don't know. I can't remember his name
oh
now.
man, I know who you're talking about. I just don't remember the name. Yeah, of
How good a
course it'll come to
golfer?
me as soon
How
as we're
good a
done.
golfer are you?
Man, I'm the guy that can go out and shoot in the low 80s, and then I'm the same guy. Sometimes after a beer or two, we're just going to see that score go up a little bit. But I, handicaps at the 13 range, so I wouldn't say good. I would just say that I go out and have fun and smile all the time. So,
That's a hell of a. What did they say? The worst day of golf is better than the best day of
yep,
work, or something like that. What's the
yep.
the your favorite course you played on, and a course you haven't played on that you'd love to get to?
I think the probably one of the favorite ones out here I played on is Whisper Rock. A good buddy of mine's a member up there, and that was just a special, unique treat. With I want to say there's 39 PGA card members that are members up there too. So it's a golf focused environment, not a country club deal. Course that I haven't played yet, and I was just up there. We had visited is Whistling Straits up in
Okay.
Wisconsin. So was able to play Black Wolf Run on the Meadows Rivers course, and that was just a treat unto itself. But
What makes a good
Whistling
golf
Straits
course
was
for you? What makes a good golf experience course for you?
if I'm playing on my Golden Tee machine at home, multiple holes in one, but on the real course, I think a reasonable fairway, something that I'm not the straightest hitter in the world,
Yeah.
not the longest, but it's hard. It's got to be a pretty bad track for me to think it's a goat track or something. So there's so many nice ones. I've been lucky to play a lot of them all over the country, and a few of them overseas. So
I have Golden Tee, and I actually hit a hole in one. I have it on video. It's pretty great. I was playing Golden Tee this last weekend at my friend whose apartment complex has an arcade, and we're playing. It's late at night, and we're having a few drinks. And he was so into the thing that when he pushed, he didn't realize that there was a glass right in front of it.
oh,
Knocks the glass off. The glass breaks. Luckily, no one was
oops,
around. He got into it. It's a great game. I got one right here in my man cave. I
good
love
for
Golden.
you. Good
Yeah,
for you.
love Golden Tea. Um, we're gonna let you go on the
Okay.
same question that we let everyone out of the Wolf Den with. You can spend a day with anyone in the world. They have to be alive. You can't be related to them. Who would you pick, and what would you guys do?
Wow, that's a really great question. I would say Michael Jordan.
Jordan?
Just yep, Jordan because we would golf. Uh, when I think of the business endeavors he's been involved in, just just to hear the stories, I think he would be somebody really special to get 4 or 5 hours on the golf course over a few beers, and of course take some shots at him, make him laugh too. But
I
uh,
I heard some not so nice things about him with his tipping and him and
yeah,
Pippen and some probably so it'd be interesting. But you
yep,
got it'd be a great day on the course. It'd be a great day to. I mean, he's one of the best in the world, so it's not a bad choice. I know he's been chosen before. I got to come up with the official list here. We're 229 in. He's definitely been chosen before. It's a great choice. I think
yep,
Obama was number one, but I have to go back and look. It's too many of these 229. Some interesting answers out there. I want people to get the information on how they can reach out and how they can help. You got LombardiFoundation.org, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook. There's a YouTube page, LinkedIn. Find out any of this. Just a quick pitch on the events that they're doing and stuff that people can do today if they want to help.
yeah, Matt. I think if people can jump to the website or any of the social channels and get access, our marketing partner does a great job in really putting together in simplistic form what are the different opportunities. And literally, there's generally a donate now button associated with all of our events. So I would just ask that people take a look. We're confident what we're doing is making a difference, but we know that the mission is far from over, and that's part of why we're creating additional events. We look to continue to expand. If people want to get involved, whether it's through financial support and or volunteering, there's always opportunities for that. And as we continue to grow, the more support we can get, the better. And it's people like you, frankly, that help get the word out, Matt. And from the bottom of my heart, I can't say thanks enough. That this is just the Wolff Den. The more I looked at it, and you should be proud of the fact you got over a couple hundred episodes going. I'm sure that the thousands will be coming after this, and just honored to be a part of it. So thanks so much
Yeah,
for making some time.
appreciate that. Yeah, it's just about getting out there and let's get Lombardi Foundation in the minds of someone who never heard of it before, who didn't think about it before, or someone who might be. There's people out there thinking, "How can I help? I want to find," and then this thing hits them, and it's like, "Oh, maybe I should look into this." So it's always great to have someone on who's part of a foundation that's doing good. And we've got a lot of people on that are doing good, but we're going to keep moving forward, trying to help one person at a time. Look forward to get involved, hopefully, with some of your future events. Good luck next week. Check out the what is it called? The
Helmets for Heroes.
Helmets for Heroes, where you can bid an auction for it's a signed helmet for NFL quarterback, correct?
Yeah, all 32 of the NFL quarterbacks were kind enough to sign for this year, and Lombardi Southwest Open, the inaugural one next, and hopefully I'd love to connect with you when you're out here for Super Bowl next February.
Yeah, we'll be out there. We'll be in touch before then, but check it out. We are off until next week, so have a great weekend. Do something great. Be safe. Have fun. And we'll talk to everyone soon. Thanks a lot, Mel.
All right. Thanks so much, Matt. Have a great